What is going on, y'all? This is Pal Nerd, and we are going to be looking at every single revealed card for the new Palworld TCG. So far, from what I've been seeing, from what I've been playing myself, I think that the red deck is my favorite. I do have a fun red deck profile that maybe I'll share with you guys that I've been kind of working on myself. And while looking at all of these, I want to talk about my favorites and what I think is going to be best in the meta. And of course, it's so new that, most of us don't know for sure what's going to be the best. Unless you've been, playtesting a lot. I personally haven't been playtesting that much, but yeah, let's get into it. Let's look at every single red card. First, we have Jarmuntide Ignis. I'm not even sure if I'm saying that right, but yeah, this card is insane. I think it's definitely a 2 or 3 of in each red deck. Maybe even a 1 of, I guess, if you're mixing colors. I have a fun mono red deck idea that I liked using, but definitely mixing colors is probably going to be a stronger strategy. But I don't know. I'll talk about that in a later video. This card here, though, you either pay 3 or you discard 2 cards from hand and you stand the card. So he essentially is a double attacker, very strong, and then strike 4, which is very strong if as long as your opponent is not hitting a lucky pal. And we got Suzaku, Hellfire Wings. This card is also very good. It is a lucky pal. Personally, I did not like this in my playtest when I was playtesting a mono red deck. Of course, when you deploy this pal, you do 700 damage to another pal your opponent controls. So you're essentially going to be sending your opponent's pal to the graveyard as long as you're doing enough damage to get rid of it. But for the cost, I don't think it's that great as far as a deploy effect. Of course, the other continuous effect is good, but I don't know. As for a lucky pal, since you're only able to run 8 of those, I just didn't. I don't know. I didn't find it as useful as some of the other ones we're going to discuss. Gopfin Ignis. This is pretty solid. It's not too bad. All of your other pals do become pretty strong as a continuous effect. And it's not a very pricey card to summon, so yeah, definitely a very useful card. Pretty solid here. We have a Bushi. Bushi is pretty cool. It's also an interrupt, which can nullify an attack from an incoming, potentially game-ending strike. So very useful card. And what's cool about it is that you can when you do summon this, and if the card attacked, you can return it to your hand and then use that interrupt effect, which is pretty cool. So we have Reptiro or Gorger, and this is one of my favorite cards in the deck that I was playing. I do think that the wood consumption deck, with having some of the other cards that let you use that wood to deal damage, I think is very nice. This is a very strong card, 1500 power, 3 strike. It is a bit a little bit pricey, but the deck that I was playing is based on summoning the gears as well, so I think this card is probably one of the best cards in the deck that I personally liked playing. Then we have Fox Sparks, Light of Courage. This one's okay. It's not great, but these smaller pals like this, I think, are very useful in this specific deck that I was playing because of the structures. The structures are very strong here, so you do want to typically tap one of the smaller guys in order to use those structures. Kitsune, it's a pretty strong card, but personally I didn't find it to be that useful, especially if you're drawing it early on. It's not too expensive to summon, but it is a little bit higher up. It's not that strong. It does have strike 2, but the fact that you can really only damage a 7 or greater pal, it is a much better later game kind of card. So maybe splashing 1 in a deck is not too bad. Personally, I didn't really care for it too much. But yeah, I'm sure it's going to be seen some play, but personally, didn't really care for it. Spark It, another cheaper of the pals. It's pretty solid. It does do damage to a standing state pal, which is pretty nice. It does help you get rid of some of the early small guys. And as a cost 3, if you're going second, you can summon them first turn. And we have Univolt, Valiant, Thunderclap. For a 4 cost, it's not too bad because of the strike 2, and the power is pretty decent for, you know, a turn 2, turn 3 kind of a PAL. And it does gain that extra 300, so it becomes essentially a 900 early game attacker, which is, it's pretty strong, especially at strike 2. Then we have Ragnarok, which it is one of the lucky PALs, and I personally do like this card. Because when you are attacking with this PAL, all of the rest of their PALs gain 500 attack, and they gain an extra strike, which is very strong. Yeah, I do really like this card. I think it is one of the stronger cards in a red deck, and especially in the deck that I was playing. Ruby Brave Sparks, another good early PAL, and even as a late game PAL, this one still is pretty strong because not only is it cheap, it can boost one of your other PALs by 400, and that 400 can make a very big difference when it comes to later game states. It is a very useful card to have for your structures as well. Flambell, it's a decent card. You know, it does give you the wood for future use, but personally did not find it that useful. So it is one of the cards that I didn't like running it in the deck that I was playing. So it is a good card, just maybe not. It's better to have, I think, one of the other smaller PALs, especially at a cost 3. Pyrin, Cinder Steed. This one's pretty solid for a 6 drop, being 1200 and 2 strike. It's not bad. I wish it had some kind of effect. It's not the most useful card, but it's not horrible. I'm sure it's gonna have some play, but personally, again, didn't really use it myself. Blaze Howl is very good. It is one of the nullify attacks PALs, and again, pretty strong. 1200, 3 strike. It is a bit of a pricier one, but I do think it is an essential card to play if you're playing an all red deck, or even if you're playing a combo deck, a mixed deck. It is probably one of the better cards to splash in there. Next, we have arguably the mascot of Palworld, and this is Grisbolt. I don't know if that's arguable. Is he the mascot? I don't know, I guess. He was in all the marketing for Palworld, the game, but anyway. Yeah, big guy here, 1600 damage, 4 strike. Definitely easily can be considered the boss monster, or one of the boss monsters of this deck. And as a lucky PAL, I found myself running 2 of this guy, since you have that 8 lucky PAL limit. This is something that I feel like you need to have in the deck. It's so strong. You can attack PALs in the stand state if you want to get rid of anything that's problematic that your opponent might be using every turn. Yeah, very, very strong card. It's definitely one of the favorites to play in the deck. We have Jolt Hog, which it's not the greatest, but as a 2-cost PAL, it's not too bad. I myself don't really run it in the deck that I'm playing, but it's a decent option. Kelpsy Ignis, it's an okay card. It is fairly strong at 500 for an early PAL. If you're going second, you can summon it first turn. I think I only run like 2 of these guys. He's not the best, but it's pretty alright. Fox Parks, a Toasty Hug. This is one of the better nullified cards to play in the deck. It is fairly cheap if you need to summon it, but you definitely typically want to keep this in hand so that you can nullify any battle damage coming your way. Arsox, fairly strong, 800 power, strike 2. On deploy, you get 2 wood. I didn't find myself making too much space for this one, or making really any space for this guy, but it is a very viable option. I may try to play another 1 or 2 of these as well, but yeah, very cool card. And we have Mosanda Lux. This guy, you can consume 2 wood. It gets 500 attack or 500 power. Again, it's not a card that I use myself, but it's not a bad option to run if you're playing a deck that makes wood and uses that wood to overpower your opponents, or do damage to your opponent. But personally, didn't find use for this in my deck. So Blazamut, very cool card, very awesome artwork, but I personally didn't find myself playing this one in my deck. As a lucky PAL goes in the deck, I just found that Jormuntide, Grisbolt, and Ragnarok were better ones to run in the deck, but it is still very strong. I still think it's very viable to play it either way. I just didn't want it. I just didn't find it as useful in my build. That's pretty much all of the actual pals themselves. Let's talk about the structures. This card specifically is probably the best one in my opinion. So having the small pals, assigned to this card, and having some of the other cards that give you wood consumption, it makes this card very, very useful. It's very easy to get rid of your opponent's pals, especially mid to early game. And the fact that they have to attack it, they have to waste some of their attacks to get rid of it. It is a decent durability, so this card is very good. And I'll show y'all the profile in a bit. Another very good early game structure. You get 3 wood and you draw a card. Very, very useful. Instead of spending the 3 to just draw a card, if you have this and one of these small early pals, it is very nice to have this early on in the game. I don't see myself using that second effect as often, but it does come up. The main thing I think is getting that extra drop plus getting the 3 wood. Flame Cauldron, another great card. All of your pals get that extra 200 boost. It is a very cheap card to have, and whenever you deploy a pal, you get a wood. I think it's very useful. It makes all your weaker pals a little bit more useful, and it makes your strong pals very, very hard to get over. And at only 2 cost, it's a good card. Alarm Bell, I didn't find myself running this card. I didn't think it was that useful. I couldn't really find space for it in the deck that I liked. But it's there. It's not great in my opinion. Stone Pit is very strong at just 1 drop. You get 3 wood right away and you draw a card. It is pretty much only when you assign it, but I do think that this is one of the more useful ones. It lets you get through your deck faster. It lets you get the wood for future effects. And then finally, I did forget to mention the workbench, the weapon workbench. You consume 1 wood and assign 1 pal. Choose up to 1 pal and deal 800 damage. Choose all of your pals and they get +1 strike until the end of the turn. It's pretty decent. It's not bad. I personally don't play it, but I can definitely see some use to it. You know what? I would maybe even replace the Ignis Blast for that specific one, or sorry, Ignis Breath. I don't know. I haven't decided 100% yet what I'm gonna do there. This card is also fairly decent, but it does, it reminds me of like early Yu-Gi-Oh when the equip cards are really only good on a specific monster. Same thing, it's decent, but it's really only good on Fox Parks, and I didn't see myself wanting to play this in the deck. However, Makeshift Handgun is also very useful for early game. You get rid of all of those smaller, weaker guys. And it is very nice to have a cheap gear being able to give your pals an extra little boost for such a low cost. It's very, very good. Then you have Single Shot Rifle. It is fairly easy to bring this out early game. It does 1500 damage. You can pretty much get rid of any problem card that your opponent has, and it gives you that 200 boost to one of your pals. Very useful. Such an easy card to bring out. And it helps so much with getting rid of something that might have a continuous effect that you might see a problem within. And then we have the big one here, the 7 cost pump action shotgun. But on deploy, you choose all of your opponent's pals and deal 1200 damage. It's essentially, if you play Yu-Gi-Oh, like a Raigeki in a way. It's very, very strong. It is obviously pretty expensive to play at 7 souls, but bringing it out with this here, if you ever hit that card with the Reptiro, it's such a cool clutch move when you get to actually hit that card with this effect. So you can essentially summon a big guy and wipe your opponent's board if you summon this and hit it with the effect. Instead of paying 15 souls total, you just pay the 8. Very, very cool. And then we do have 3 event cards in this red category here. I guess we can start with the most useful one in my opinion. That is Axle Strategy. At only 4 cost, you can deal damage to one of the pals. Get rid of pretty much gets rid of any pal that your opponent has. Especially by the time you get to get enough soul to play this, which is going to be early to mid game. Yeah, you can get rid of any problem pal. Another cool thing that you can do is if you do attack, you can stand your pals depending on the number of gears, which is, in this deck you do play, or I like to play, a decent amount of gears. And then the third option, choose all of your opponents 5 or greater pals and they cannot block. That one doesn't come up as much for me personally, or hasn't yet, but yeah, definitely the first effect is the most useful in my opinion. And then we have treasure chest found. You look at the top 5 cards of your deck, choose up to 1 red or structure or gear from among them and add it to your hand. You shuffle the rest of the cards, but if you do not choose a structure or a gear, you do get 3 wood. Add only a 2 cost. I feel like this is very useful. It's essentially kind of like drawing a card, but if you don't draw a card, you at least get wood. I think it's a no-brainer to play at least 3 of that card in the deck. And then Ignis Breath. It is a quick effect card, so you can play it during your opponent's turn as well. It's, if you play Yu-Gi-Oh, it's like a hand trap, or I guess more so if you play Magic, it's like an instant. And you choose 1 pal, deal 500 damage. This one doesn't come up as much as I would like it later in the game. By then, your opponent is, playing stronger pals. 500 damage isn't that strong in a later state of the game. So I do only play 2 of those. I would maybe even cut that card completely. I haven't decided yet, but it is useful sometimes. But overall, I feel like you can maybe run something a little bit better. I think mostly I ran it just to keep the full mono red theme to it, but you can definitely play something better. And this time we are looking at the blue card, so let's just get into it. Let's look at all these awesome blue pals. We got Shillet Dragon Whisper, which is I have not personally tested this deck too much, but I think I kind of want to build this. I've been playing the game as well. I'm like 70 hours in at this point, and Shillet is probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite pal to keep on me. Yeah, after growing attached to this little guy, I kind of really want to build this deck, and I just think the effect is also so good. You can deploy a pal that's 8 or less cost pretty much for free by looking at the top card of your deck. If you don't, you add it to your hand. So essentially, you are either going to summon a free pal or drawing a card, which I think is very good. And he's a lucky pal. Next, we got Relaxosaurus. This is also a nice little funny guy. Like I said, I haven't tested this deck really much myself, so off the top of my head, I can't remember what really is that great to test here, but we can look at these effects and see what's actually pretty good. Auto on deploy, you choose up to 1 6 or less pal, rest it. While this card's in base, that card does not stand. So that's kind of interesting. You're essentially stopping one of your opponent's pals from defending, and yeah, as long as this card is there, that thing is not gonna defend. Not too bad. Then we got the Germontide, the OG, not the Ignis. On deploy, you draw a card, choose up to 1 7 or less pal, and rest it. That card does not stand during your opponent's next stand phase. So, seeing a little bit of a trend there. You're kind of stunning your opponents here with the blue deck. And again, you draw a card, and it's pretty strong. Strike 3. It's a lucky pal. Not bad, not bad. It's pretty solid actually. Personally, I think the Ignis one is a little bit better, but I can definitely see this one being favorited, obviously. Next, we got Pengulet, Yearning for the Sky. Oh, that's kind of cute because penguins can't really fly. When this card's put into the graveyard, draw 1 card. Solid. Yeah, it has an okay power for the cost. It's a turn 2, turn 3 kind of pal. Strike 2 isn't too bad, and when you block with it, or just if it just gets sent to the graveyard, draw a card. Not too bad, not too bad. Let's go with Azuro, but Water Dragon Waltz. Draw 1 card on deploy, choose up to 1 pal and rest it. So again, with the stun effects, it's a lucky pal. It's not too pricey to cast. Stats are okay. Not too bad. I'm not sure if I would play it myself, but it's not horrible. Reptiros Christ. On deploy, you draw a card. So you once per turn, discard 1 card from your hand. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck. Choose up to 2 6 or less structures from among them and deploy them. So it's kind of similar to the other effect of the Ore Gorger effect for the red deck. Yeah, not bad actually. It's pretty solid. I for an 8 cost, I wish the power was a little bit higher. The effect's pretty strong though if you're, kind of going towards that structure kind of gameplay. We got Pen King. This guy's funny. All of your main name Pengulet pals get 700 attack. That's actually pretty strong. 700 is a pretty big difference there. It's a 5 cost, Strike to Strike. It's decent, but I mean, you'd have to get base the deck around the Pengulet stuff. Is there other Pengulets? I don't think there is. Oh, there is. Okay, so you could essentially run 4, 4, and 4 and make these little Pengulets kind of beaters since they're pretty low cost. I don't know if that's really a viable strategy here, but down the line as they make more cards, it could be a viable strategy, I guess. Thwack, which I think is a funny name. Thwack, Manic Wave Ripper. When this card is attacked, this card gets 300 until end. So when he's blocking, essentially he gets 500. He gets up to 500 power. It's all right, but like I said with the red description, with those small cost pals, you really do need them to get a cheap little pal to work your structures. So then we got Wumpo, Frost Peak Sentinel. If this card is in the rest state, all of your opponent's pals get a -1 strike. That's not bad. So essentially, you want to be attacking with this guy. He is pretty beefy, and yeah, your opponents, if they have some of the smaller guys, those smaller guys are not doing damage to you. The bigger guys are doing less strike damage. So not bad, not bad. It's pretty good, and it's a lucky pal. T-Fount, Fountain of Cheer. So on a sign, choose one pal, it gets 400. Okay, so it boosts another pal. Again, the 2 costs, pretty solid. And I kind of like these, the serious effects guys, because, when they're summoned later in the game, it's kind of nice for that extra little push when your opponent does have bigger pals on the board. Mao Christ. When this card is assigned to a farming structure, draw 1 card. Not bad, and like I said, you need the small guys, so that's not too bad. It gives you an extra draw. It is a little pricier than some of those little 2 cost guys, but yeah, it's not bad. Celery. Loop de Loop. Draw 1 card on attack, choose 1 card from your hand and discard it. So, it's not too bad. Helps you cycle through the deck. Add a 3 cost with 400 power. Yeah, I mean, you're cycling through the deck, I guess. This one's pretty solid. Then we have a vanilla 4-drop, 700 power, 2 strike. It's pretty solid for a, second, third turn pal. Yeah, it's not bad. What do we got here? Cryolinks. So we have the nullify attack guy here, 6-drop, 900, 2 strike. Yeah, this one's pretty solid. I can definitely see this one being a 4 of in the deck. Alpha Dran Aqua, one of my favorite pals in the game. So you draw 2 cards, choose 1 card from your hand, and put it on top of the deck. So this is kind of where the combos start coming into play. You play this guy, you set a dragon, you make sure that there's a dragon on top of the deck, and when you summon your Shillet, you summon that dragon back out. So that's pretty cool. So part of the combo there would be obviously to stack if you're playing the Azuro, if you're playing the Jarmuntide, and pretty much any other dragon. Once if you're mixing blue with, I think purple is one of the popular ones to mix this with. Yeah, you really play the combo here with Alpha Dran. In this case, it's pretty nice that it's not a lucky dragon. No, it's not a lucky pal, since you are able to splash in some of the other strong dragons. Yeah, pretty cool. This is definitely a 4 of in the deck in my opinion. Jolthog. It's a vanilla 2. Not too shabby. But yeah, I think at that point I would probably play the T-Font or the Thwack over that one. Same with the Pengulet. I don't know if I would personally play the Pengulet if you're not doing the the big penguin guy, the Pen King, but if it's, I guess I think it's a viable strategy, a viable. If you're maybe if you're playing like mono blue, it's viable to splash that in that attack boosting combo. But if you're mixing blue with something else, I don't think that it's viable to play the penguins in my opinion. Hangyu Christ, Frigid Wanderer. So on deploy, you choose up to 1 3 or less pal and rest it. So you can rest one of your opponent's smaller guys. I don't know if that's really worth doing, mid game at that point. But yeah, I mean, it has decent stats, 600 and then 2 strike. We have the Raindrix, Icy Graze, and this is one of the Nullify attack guys. This one's pretty solid. I think this one's a little bit better, but yeah, it's at least a smaller cost guy. It is a little bit weaker, but yeah, it's not bad. Then we have Suzaku Aqua, and we have Vigilance at the end of return stand this card. So just like in Magic the Gathering, but instead of it just staying rested, it does it at the end of the turn. Pretty solid. It's a 7 drop, 12 power, 1200 power, and 3 strike. You can block with it later on. You can attack and then block. That's actually pretty solid, and it is a lucky pal. Then we have the Mamorest Christ. This card gets 200 for each of your structures, so that's actually very, very strong. If you're playing a deck based on structures and you're going for that kind of build, which you usually want at least 2 of a type of structure in the deck, but if you're throwing in more of those, that's actually very, very strong, very hard to get over. And then you can also discard 1 structure from hand. This card gets +1 strike until the end of the turn. So essentially, if you have 2 structures, that's a 2100 beater with 4 strike. That is very strong. So that is all the blue pals. Let's look at these structures and see if they are worth playing. So we have Antique Curtain. Choose up to X of your opponent's pals. It's on deploy. And return them to the hand. X is equal to the number of different card names among your structures with Antique in their names. If the current state has 4, Antique Mirror and Curtain is deployed, return up to 2 cards. So I hadn't realized that there are 3 antique structures here, 4 antique structures here. So that one's pretty decent. I just it's too situational. It is it does have strong durability, but it does have to be on deploy. You have to have already drawn these antiques. You would have to already have deployed them, and you would have already they would have to have survived at this point. So I don't know how viable that really is. It's decent mid to late game, but I think that's a little too situational. Then Antique Dresser, you discard 1 card from hand, discard 1 card name, choose all of your cards, and they get that declared name in addition until the. So I guess that makes everything, potentially all of your structures, antique themed. That's not too bad. I don't like the idea of having to draw this. Like you have to draw this later in the game, because otherwise you're just holding on to it in your hand. I mean, you do have ways to draw cards, recycle cards, but yeah, I'm not liking this antique theme to this. Hot Spring, choose up to 2 6 or less pals and rest them. Those cards do not stand during your opponent's next stand phase, which is actually very strong. This is a very good way to get your attacks through. Yeah, definitely see Hot Spring being used in every blue deck for sure. Then you got Antique Mirror. You pay 1, you draw a card, which is very nice. I think that one's definitely a staple in every blue deck. Sphere Workbench. Sign a pal, you draw 2 cards, choose 1 card from your hand, and discard it. So again, you're cycling through your deck a little bit faster. Yeah, I think that these 3 right here for sure are staples in this blue deck. Like I said, I'm not a big fan of the antique. The other 2 previous antique cards that are a little too situational. This one, choose antique wooden chair, choose up to 1 pal, and it gets 1000 plus until end of the turn on deploy. Not bad. I think this is pretty decent. It's fairly cheap, and you're able to push for some stronger attacks. Definitely, if you're playing the Pengulet beatdown deck, you can you can give them an extra little boost for a pretty low cost structure. Primitive Workbench. Assign 1 pal, reveal the top card of your deck. If it is a 6 or less structure or gear, you may deploy it. If you did not deploy it, add it to your hand. Essentially, you get to your draw or deploy a free structure. It's not bad. It's decent. Personally, if I'm playing a blue deck where I'm mixing with a different color, I'm probably only going to be running these 3 cards in my opinion, but obviously this could change. The game is still too early to really tell what's going to be ideal and optimal until people really start playtesting against each other at local events, tournaments, stuff like that. So let's look at the gears. Pengulet rocket launcher. Rest this card. Choose one pal and it gets 200 power until end of turn. If its name is Pengulet, it gets 500 instead. And the skill in brackets here until end of the turn. So the skill that it gets is rest this card, choose all of your opponent's pals, and they get X damage. X is equal to this card's powers. You know, that's actually pretty strong. If you're doing damage to all of your opponent's pals, you know what? I might be wrong. The Pengulet beatdown might actually be very viable, and I kind of really like it. I'm gonna try to make a deck based on this Pengulet beatdown. I don't know, whatever this is. It seems pretty fun. I'm gonna try this out because I just really want to use this rocket launcher. Alright, we have the grappling gun as the next gear. Rest this card, choose one pal, and it gets 200 attack, and the skill in brackets, it has vigilance. That's not too bad, but for a 5-drop, I don't know about that. I mean, vigilance is really good. It does definitely help you block any future attacks. But yeah, I don't know if I would play this for that cost. If it was like a drop 2, maybe even drop 3, it would be a lot better. But as a 5, I feel like there's going to be better things to deploy that turn. And the last gear we have here, single shots. Your launcher, on deploy you draw a card. For 3 costs is not too bad, since you can pay 3 souls to draw a card normally once per turn. So you can rest this card, choose one pal, it gets 200 attack until the end of the turn. Yeah, that's not bad. I mean, if you're gonna pay 3 souls to draw a card on a random turn, you might as well have something gain 200 attack. So that's it's not horrible. It's pretty solid, but it's not. I don't think it's super necessary in the deck. But like I said, those 200 powers can definitely help you push to make that extra little push for a game especially towards the end of the match. All right, so we have some events to go through here. We have Victor's strategy. Choose one of the following. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck. Choose one card from among them. Add them to your hand. Shuffle the rest. So again, you're essentially drawing a card, but you're getting to choose. For a cost 3, that's very solid. Definitely a 4 of in a deck. But you have 2 other options here. You choose one pal, return it to the hand. So you bounce a card from your opponent's field, which is very strong. Draw X cards. X is equal to the number of your structures. Again, if you're playing that structure antique kind of build to this, you can potentially draw a lot of cards just for that 3 cost. Very strong, very nice. Events Pal Sphere, which should have been a gear, I guess. But I guess if it's like a one-time use. Pay 4, draw 3 cards. Very straightforward, very solid. It's like a much stronger Pot of Greed. Aurora Guide, 2 cost. It's a quick, so it's like an instant or a hand trap if you play Yu-Gi-Oh! So you draw 1 card, choose up to 1 card from your hand, put it on top of the deck. Okay, that's pretty solid. It's a quick play. I'm not sure why it would be a quick, but yeah, not bad. It's actually probably a 4 of in a deck, maybe a 3 of. And the last event here, we have another quick effect. Choose one pal and it gets -3 strike until the end of the turn. That card does not stand during opponent's next stand. So it paralyzes a pal and you basically don't get damage. This is actually very good. I mean, you do have to leave 2 of your souls untapped, unrested for, you want to ideally use this if your opponent is going for a big push. Especially, if they already have a pal that can do, about 3 or less strike that you're, kind of scared of. Nullifying the strike damage and being able to paralyze that from not standing their next stand phase is, you get to kind of attack over a big guy. Yeah, it's pretty good. I would definitely run this. So that is all the blue cards as of right now. We are back to talk about the green cards in Palworld TCG or OCG. Let's start off with probably what's maybe the mascot of this green deck, Liline, Blessing of the Goddess. So on deploy, you get 3 ingredients, which I think it's like, is that a fruit? I think it's a fruit. And you can consume all 3. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck. Choose up to 1 6 or less pal from among them and deploy it, which is very, very strong. I think this is one of the decks that I played against recently that was a little bit more complicated to beat. They were spamming a lot. I believe this one with the purple deck is yeah, it's a pretty hard deck to beat. So very strong card, and I think recently there was a reveal of an alternate artwork for this that was very cool. So yeah, definitely a staple in this green deck. It is a bit of a pricier card, so it is a turn 4 and later kind of play here, but pretty strong, decent power. It's not great, but it does have 3 strike. So yeah, and it is a lucky pal. I think it's a staple out of 4 in this deck. Then we got Dig Twice, Seismic Drillback. So continuous effect. If you have 10 or more souls, this card gets 1,000 power, which is pretty nuts, and an additional strike. You can consume 2, and until the end of this turn, this card gets 500 power and this extra skill, which the skill is called Breakthrough. When the opposing combat pal is put into the graveyard during this card's attack, the opposing player is also dealt damage. So that's pretty nuts. Not sure. I mean, for a lucky card, it is fairly strong. I do think that there are better options in the deck since it is a lucky pal, and you're limited to those. It's very strong, but yeah, I'm not sure if personally I would max out on this card, or even yeah, I don't know. I don't even know if I would run it personally. Petalia, Sweet Blessings. On deploy, you gain 1 life. You choose 2 souls and stand them, which is very cool, essentially making it a 4-drop in a way. Next we have Rushore, Reckless Destruction. When this card attacks a structure, this card gets 800 damage until the end of the turn. So essentially you can do a lot of damage to a structure. Some structures are about 1,000, so if it is 8,000 durability structure, you can destroy that structure pretty quickly with just a simple little 2-drop guy. Elizabeth, Queen of the Flower Garden. This card gets 300 power for each of your main name bee guard pals. So if you have a lot of those smaller bees, she can get pretty beefy there. She is a lucky pal at a 5-drop, which isn't too bad. You consume 1 ingredient, look at the top card of your deck, and if that name is bee guard pal, you may play it with its cost reduced by 2. It does not become 0 or less from that ability. Not sure if it's great. You do have to run the bee guards, and like I said, I've said in the previous color videos, sometimes these circumstantial or situational effects, they're not great for consistency. If you're trying to be a little bit more competitive, they are fun for sure if you're playing more casually, or just you're doing some stuff for fun, because when they do go off, they're very strong. Very strong effects when they do meet those requirements, but again, those are situational scenarios where if you want to be more competitive, you want it to be a little bit better consistent and kind of flow a little bit better. So in that situation, I don't know if I would play this personally. Next we have War Sect, Iron Fortress. This is hands down one of my favorite pals. He is so cool, and he is a pretty beefy guy. You got 8 drop, 1500 power, 3 strike. His effect is Taunt. Your opponent cannot target other targets with if a card with Taunt can be targeted for an attack. If you play Lorcana, essentially he's like a blocker or defender. I don't remember the term. Essentially, if your opponent is attacking you and this guy is on the field, he must be attacked first, which makes him an Iron Fortress. It makes him a really beefy guy to have on your field. I would definitely play 2 or 3 of these guys. Maybe I'm biased because I think he's so cool, but no, I think if you're trying to, make sure that your opponent is not getting any attacks through, this is a problem that they have to deal with before pushing through any further. So, pretty cool guy. Next we have Valet, Bewitching Blossom. There's a 8-drop lucky pal. You can discard 1 card from hand. If you assigned this card this turn, you stand this card. So if you have to essentially tap or rest a pal to assign them, but if you do, it's essentially a free assigner for one of your structures, which is pretty cool, after obviously discarding a card from hand. Additionally, it is very strong, and it does have strike 3, so that's very cool. This is very useful. I can definitely see people wanting to max out on this card, maybe play 2 or 3 of these. I think it really depends on your playstyle that you're going for, or the kind of deck that you're playing essentially, but this is a very strong card. Next, we have a vanilla 3-drop lift monk, promising newbie. 500 power, strike 1. Is pretty decent for a 3-drop. It just kind of sucks that it's a vanilla, but you know it is a it is pretty cool. It is a good card. Personally, not sure if I would play it, but you know, if you have the room for it, if you need this, like I said, if you're playing a lot of structures or you need some of the smaller guys for your structures, this is a solid pick. Mud Mellow Bounty. On deploy, you get 2 ingredients. When this card is assigned to a farming structure, increase your soul by 1 card in the rest state. So that's kind of cool. It gives you souls a little bit faster. He has a 4-drop, 500, strike 2. The strike 2 is nice. You know, it's a turn 2, turn 3 kind of card. Yeah, it's pretty solid, especially if you need more cards to get more materials quicker. This is definitely a good choice. Then we have Gumo's Curious Sprout. On deploy, this card gets 300 power and the skill, which is Assault. This card can attack pals in the stand state. So that's not bad. On its first turn, it gets 900 power and 2 strike, and it is a fairly cheap card. So if you're going for a little bit more aggressive play, yeah, this is definitely a decent way to go about it. Next, we have another Digtoise, but this one is not lucky, and it is a little bit of a smaller cost. So once per turn, you consume 2 ingredients. This card gets 500 attack, putting them at 1300 power, and the skill, which is Breakthrough, similar to the other Digtoise. When the opposing combat pal is put into the graveyard, so when you defeat an opponent's pal during this card's attack, the opposing player is also dealt damage. So not bad, not bad. You're still kind of getting some attack through. Think of it kind of like Trample in Magic the Gathering. Next, we have Tanzi, Cheerful Worker. He has Sirius 400, and in my previous color videos, I've talked about how this is pretty solid. I would definitely max out on these, especially if you're playing structures. As a 2-drop structure worker, these are really nice early game, mid game, and even mid to late game. These guys are very good for pushing that extra 400 power if you need to get over an opponent's bigger pals. Here we have B-Guard. So, if you're playing that Elizabeth kind of play style, this card is fairly cheap to drop. 3 souls, 400 power, 1 strike. So I read this effect a couple of times because I wasn't really sure what I'm reading. You may put any number of cards with the same card name as this card into your deck. I'm assuming that means if they are in play, you can put them back into the deck. Essentially, maybe so that they can get off this effect here, but yeah, I'm not too sure on that one. Maybe if anybody knows in the comments, just comment down below how this exactly works. I'm a little confused as to how it's a word. It might be my Yu-Gi-Oh brain or my Magic the Gathering brain, because I'm trying to dissect exactly how it's worded, and maybe I'm confusing myself here, but. Other than that, on deploy, it does get an extra ingredient, and if you have a farming structure on play, this card gets 500 until the end of the turn. So essentially, on its first turn, if you already have a structure out, it is a pretty cheap drop of 900 power guy with 1 strike. So it's pretty solid. We have Wumpo Botan, Tropical Sentinel. So this is one of the nullify attack guys. He is a pretty beefy guy, 7-drop, 1200 power, and 3 strike. Not too bad. If you're, especially, I do think that playing at least 4 total in the deck of nullify attack cards are pretty essential. So I don't know if you would max out on this guy. I'm not sure if we have any other nullify attackers. Oh yeah, we do. So yeah, I'd maybe play 2 and 2 of those nullify attack kind of guys. Next, we have Mosanda Guard Captain. He is a vanilla, no effect here. 5-drop, 900 power, and 2 strike. It's pretty solid. We actually have 2 vanillas. Yeah, with those vanillas, I'm not 100% sure yet if I would play those over some of these other things that kind of help the game state a little bit more. If you're going to play a vanilla, I would probably rather play the Lift Monk, since it is only 1 extra soul for a little bit more power. But yeah, it really just depends on your builds here. These 2 are okay, but they're not great. Next, we have Floppy Snack Lover. On deploy, you get 2 ingredients. So see, I would much rather play this over, a Gumos, or even over the, actually, and I just said I would play the Lift Monk, but I would definitely play this over the Lift Monk. It has only 100 less power, but you at least get 2 ingredients on deploy. So, because these guys, the power is not that important early on, especially if you're trying to set up for one of your bigger pals. So, definitely would max out on this guy over any of these other smaller ones. It's a good structure worker at 3 drop, and like I said, you get the ingredients. Next we have Dino Sum, Radiant Fragrance. Yeah, this is a 4 drop. Like I said earlier, it's the nullify attack guy. I would actually probably play maybe 2 and 2 of these guys. But this one being such a smaller cost, but it does have significantly less power. It does have 2 strike. Yeah, I don't know. I would definitely need some testing between those 2 and see how which ones I would prefer to play. Maybe even like 2 and 3, 3 and 2, 3 and 3. It really depends on your play style and how you want to structure the deck. We have Eikthyr Terra, which is it's a hard name to pronounce. That is a 6 drop soul, 800 power, 2 strike. It does have taunt, so similar to the Warsect, you do have to attack this first if you want to attack any of your other opponent's pals. You can consume 2 and it gets an extra 500 power. It's not bad. It's pretty solid. Yeah, I think I would maybe play a couple of these if there's the room. Next we have the two last pals here, and they're both lucky pals. Let's look at Bronze Cherry first, and this one has taunt just like the other guys. I would probably play this over the deer for sure. It does take up your lucky pal spots, but it does have 1500 power and 3 strike, which is pretty nice. And then we have the Mammorest, Roar of the Wilds. When this card is put into the graveyard, you get 3 ingredients. This is an 8 drop that is 2000 power and 4 strike. That is one beefy dude. I would probably personally maybe max out on these as far as taking off some of those lucky pal spots. Making a big push in the late game with 2000 power and 4 strike is pretty nice. Alright, that is all the pals. Let's look at the structures. First we have Breeding Farm. You can consume 2 ingredients, reveal the top card of your deck, add it to your hand if it is an 8 or less pal, otherwise put it into the graveyard. So you're essentially consuming 2 ingredients to basically draw a card, since the likelihood of hitting an 8 cost pal or higher is very unlikely. And then the next effect here, consume 2 ingredients, assign 2 pals. You choose 1 8 or less pal from your hand and deploy it. So if you have some of the smaller guys already out on the field, you want to bring out a bigger guy, you can essentially deploy it by just tapping some of those small guys. Cola Vending Machine. You can consume X ingredients, assign 1 pal, choose 1 soul and stand it, then choose up to 3 times the number of X of souls and stand them. So you're kind of, I guess, using your souls a little bit more resourcefully there. So far with these 2 structures, I'm not 100% sure if I would play them at a max number there. I would maybe play that Cola Vending Machine. Next we have Feedbox. Feedbox, you consume 1, increase your soul by 1 card in the rest state, so you can, play a soul a little bit quicker. If there were 10 or more souls before increasing, choose 2 souls and stand them. So kind of using you're playing this kind of for free, I guess, at that point. It's pretty decent very early on. Mid game though, it's not great, but it's all right. Again, if you are mixing colors, doing dual color decks, I'm not 100% sure if I would play this. Next we have Ranch. Get either 3 wood or 3 ingredients or fruit, whatever, and you draw a card assigning 1 pal. This is very strong. I would say this is a staple in the deck. I would probably max this out at 4. No pals beyond sign. You assign 1 pal. The pal assigned to this card gets the skill here, and that is a continuous taunt effect. So you can assign one of your bigger guys or even one of your smaller guys to be a taunter, essentially being kind of your main blocker to help defend your other pals. Yeah, I don't know if I would play this one specifically for 5 drop. I feel like there are better cards to play. Next we have Berry Plantation. You assign 1 pal, you get 3 fruit, and draw 1 card. And you can rest your standing pal to assign it. Yeah, pretty decent. It's a 1 drop, so again, assigning one of your smaller guys to this, so you get that extra drop. Works pretty well. Wouldn't say that it is, I would say it's, probably a 3 or 4 of in the deck. And then we have Campfire. Consume 2 fruit, assign 1 pal. You gain 1 life. Choose all of your pals and they get plus 1000 power until the end of the turn. That is pretty strong, especially towards the mid to late game, so that you can, push for a lot more damage. Push, if your opponent has some troublesome pals, attack over them and, try to go for that game there. That is all the structures in the green category. I would definitely say that out of all the colors, these might be the weakest in my opinion, but again, I could be wrong. After testing out the cards a little bit more, testing out some decks and their synergy, I might be wrong, but yeah, at the moment I do think that these are a little less impressive from the other colors. All right, let's look at some gears now. We have Dictois Headband. You rest this card, choose 1 pal, and it gets 200 power until the end of the turn. If his name is Dictois, you can get an extra material. So if you're combining this with like the red deck and make a green-red deck, I guess that works since there's some synergy there. But again, go back to the circumstantial plays. I don't think it's ideal to play this because you have more requirements to make it optimal other than just the souls that you're paying for it. Farming Hat. For 3 drops, you get rest this card, choose 1 pal, it gets 200 power until the end of the turn, and you get an extra bit of ingredients there. So this one is pretty solid. I would say it's maybe like a 3 of in the deck. And lastly, we have Refined Metal Spear. You rest this card, you choose 1 pal, and it gets 900 damage boost until the end of the turn, which a 6 drop is a little hefty, but I do think maybe running 1 or 2 of these is pretty decent, to make that push late game, like I said before, with some of the other bigger stuff that boosts your pal's attacks. I don't think it's necessary in the deck though. If I would say if it doesn't fit, don't worry about it. Playing it, it's not necessary in my opinion. If you can find room for it, maybe splash it in, but I'm kind of somewhere in the middle on that one. And then finally, for the event cards, we have Lily's Strategy. Choose one of the following. Choose all of your pals, and they get 1000 until the end of the turn. Pretty solid for a 3 drop. You can choose a structure or gear and put it into the graveyard. So one of your opponent's troublesome structures or gears, it's a very easy way to get rid of those. Increase your soul by 1 card and the rest state. Again, compared to some of the other previous strategies from the red and blue decks or red colors that we've seen so far, might be one of the weaker strategy cards, but could prove me wrong though. That extra 1000 power is very useful if you're going for a kind of a bigger beatdown strategy. But yeah, also getting rid of a troublesome structure or gear is pretty nice, especially the red deck that has like that machine gun that can do a lot of damage to your pals. It's an easy way to get rid of that. Found an Egg. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck, choose up to 1 pal from among them and add it to your hand, and shuffle the rest of the cards with the deck. If you don't choose a pal here, you get 3 ingredients. Definitely a 4 of in the deck. It's essentially you paying to either draw or get a lot of ingredients for some of the other effects, which either way, I think it is a win-win. This card is a 4 of in my opinion. Blessing of the Flower Spirit. You gain 1 life, draw 1 card for a 3 drop. It's pretty decent since, again, if you can pay 3 souls to draw a card normally, but I think that getting that extra life and kind of going through your deck in a easier way that way, and especially as a filler card, I think that's very strong. And I would probably play at least 3 of those. And then finally we have Stone Blast. It's a quick effect. Choose 1 pal and it gets 500. So it's a cheap way to boost your pal. I don't know if I would play this personally. If you have room for it, definitely do so. But I don't think it's a necessary card in this green deck. So that's all the green cards for now. Let me know what you guys think. I might have been wrong about this color, but personally, I do think that when you mix it with some of the other colors, it's a very, very strong deck. I have lost to a green purple deck before. It was one of the harder matchups that I've had, but so a lot of the cards though I don't think are great, but the cards that are strong are very strong. So we finally got to the purple deck or the purple colored cards. I would say this might be the most popular of all the ones I've seen people play, the ones that people like the most. It does have some very, very cool cards, some of my favorites that I've seen in the game as well.